Well, good noon to you. And what a beautiful day. But did you enjoy the snow too? Yeah. Did you enjoy the snow? Oh. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy. I coordinate the Conversations and Coffee. And today is a very special day with Julie Zickefoose. And Julie is from Whipple, Ohio. Can you believe that? And they named a band called the Whipple Warblers.
That was a long time ago.
A long time ago, but it feels very present now with its creativity and your presence to the creatures who are all around us. And sometimes we're so busy, we don't notice. But Julie is calling us to notice. And one of her wonderful ways of noticing is, she says, to listen to the universe that just simply says, you should be doing this. Don't you love it? She writes, perhaps the greatest blessing is the ability to leap off after interesting tangents. Let's ask the children, what do you love to do around birds? What have you been doing with birds? Ah, this hand goes up here. You want to talk in the microphone? How have you been? No, anybody want to talk in the microphone? Oh, you do. Tell us about what you're doing with birds.
We do birds about, we make them about clay.
You have created birds with clay as sculptors.
Or sketching them.
You're sketching them, Julie. Julie sketches birds. Oh, there's so many wonderful hands.
And we do, Miss Hitler wants us to do, like, we hope that we can sketch something.
That's so beautiful. And your teachers are going to tell us we could spend the whole time, Julie, listening to how the children have listened to the universe and birds. Let's hear about an adult over here who loves birds. Someone ahead of time said, I love birds. What do you do with birds? Oh, a bird watcher we have among us. How wonderful. Well, Julie reaches to working in pencil, watercolor. Ah, tell us, Julie.
Shall I start?
You shall start.
Thank you. All right. I'm so thrilled to be here today. It's kind of a new venue for me, but I know that the Columbus art community is very vibrant, and my friend Lisa Craig Morton has sort of woken me up to some people in it. A favorite of mine is Jim Murren, the plein air landscape and people painter, and I'm about to start a series of paintings inspired by his from things I saw in Ecuador, and I cannot wait. But today I'm here to talk to you about Baby Birds, my book. It's called Baby Birds, An Artist Looks into the Nest. I think of myself as sort of a very low-grade and unpaid superhero. My superpower is saving economically worthless, inedible wildlife that would otherwise die without me. That's what I do. And it's something that I've always dropped everything I'm doing to go save birds that are hurt or orphaned and box turtles that have cracked shells and things like this. And here I'm carrying a painted turtle across the road. This is near my home. This is, you can see just topping the crest of the hill there is a pickup truck. And when they saw me saving this painted turtle, they stepped on the gas and tried to get both of us. This is where I live. This gives me wonderful material to write about. So, you know, if there's a goose on the levee with fishing line on its wing, who you gonna call, right? Me. So I don't mind wading into winter rivers to go get a goose. And this little guy is doing ever so much better since I untangled him. The mangoes are both here. Hi, mangoes. All right, so there's a little owl. And you know, there's a lot of heartbreak on the road to wildlife rehab. Not all of them make it. And you have to toughen up your heart because when you're dealing with things that are young and things that are hurt and broken, there's a lot of death too. So I've become, if not welcoming of it, at least philosophical about the deaths of some of the birds that I take care of. Now, most of what I do, I realize my job is to stare out the window. And the day I had this epiphany that my job was to walk in the woods and stare out the window was one of the happiest days of my life. I had been wasting time feeling guilty for my daily hikes, and then I finally put it together that I did my best thinking while I was walking or hiking, and that my best stories came out of what I saw when I went outside. And I stopped myself and said, Julie, your job is to walk in the woods. And then I was like, oh, I'm working. This is great. And it jibed beautifully with my puritanical work ethic, so I walk in the woods a lot, as much as 3 or 4 hours a day, and the things I see you just wouldn't even believe. So this is a glimpse into my studio. The studio is pretty much taken up by 2 enormous flat files, here and here, and those are full of bird art. Nobody wants to buy bird art. I figured that out pretty early in the game, but a lot of people want to publish it, so I work for publication, and I've learned not to frame my paintings because nobody's going to buy them anyway. So when I frame them, I can't fit them into the flat file. If I don't frame them, I have hundreds of bird paintings in there. So when I die, there's going to be a fabulous Julie Zickefoose museum that no one will go to that's full of my bird paintings.
Animal because I love dogs.
Oh, you do? Dogs? 3 dogs. Okay, well, I started out loving cats, if you can imagine, and then I segued to horses, and I drew only horses, and then I went to birds. And then I didn't. Okay, so we're not going to probably talk during the presentation. We're going to talk after, and that's why it's called Coffee and Conversation. So this is my dad, and I'm very, very lucky to have had a dad. You can't choose your parents, but my father knew something about everything. And he is with me today. I'm telling you, he is with me today. He comes to me in the form of hawks and eagles. And I was driving along this morning, and I was thinking about how the universe opens up when you open. And as I had that thought, a bald eagle came flapping low across the highway with its shining white tail with 2 crows chasing it. And I said, thanks, Dad. I thought you'd agree. Anyway, this is a very special picture. I am 13 years old. I'm trying very hard to be the boy my father wished I was. I was the last of 5, and he had a bunch of dang girls. And he wanted another boy. My brother Bob was working too hard to just be the only son. But here's the really cool part about this picture. We are looking at Audubon prints. These are John James Audubon prints that my father has brought in a big stack to show me. He got them through an insurance premium at work or something like that, and he brought them home to me. So I had a dad who knew how to expose me to the best stuff. And in the 70s, when I was growing up, it was very fashionable to denigrate John James Audubon. He wasn't a good bird painter. His birds were all twisted. They didn't look natural, blah, blah, blah. I always thought he was fabulous. My father always thought he was fabulous, and now the world agrees with us. So anyway, we're looking here at a print of the Arctic tern. Little did I know that this summer I would be asked to restore an original Audubon elephant folio tern print, which had faded in the light. And I had the great honor of taking watercolors to this print on this soft rag paper that was printed on and bringing it back to the same kind of life that Audubon gave it. The one thing I did was, there was a technique that Audubon had in his early paintings of doing a sort of a triangular pie slice of reflection in the eye. Somewhat like the early Walt Disney characters, like Steamboat Willie had a big triangle in his eye. They call him Pie-Eyed Willie. And I didn't like that, so I softened the highlight in the eye and made it more suitable. And then, so because I felt guilty about that, I put a little penciled note down in the corner. I had committed this abomination. and then after that, I was asked to do the common tern too. And I gotta say, Audubon did all the hard work, Audubon and Havel, his engraver, but it was such fun to paint over those. So early books that my father exposed me to, instead of reading me, Goodnight Moon, even if it were written at the time, he read me Thurber. He read me E.B. White. He read me Conrad Lorenz. And Conrad Lorenz was an animal behaviorist who didn't just study animal behavior, he participated in it. Conrad Lorenz hatched a bunch of goose eggs, and he let the baby geese imprint on him, which means that they believed he was their mother, and they followed him around. Geese will do that, chickens too. So Conrad Lorenz drew in the margins of his books just these beautiful little sketches, and I saw that, and I wanted to do that too. Another very formative books, the books of Clancy Holling and his wonderful wife Lucille, who did a bunch of the painting and illustration, uncredited of course, as was the custom at the time. They did these beautiful graphite drawings and tempera paintings, and I looked at those books and I wanted to do books like that someday. So expose your kids to the good stuff and your grandkids, show them the good stuff, and it may light a fire. Probably the apex of illustration, in my opinion, was Louis Darling, who illustrated the Beverly Cleary series. Henry Huggins, Beezus and Ribsy, Ramona the Pest, one of the greats. And Louis could just make these little kids come to life in his drawings. They were fabulous. But what people don't know is that his wife, Lois, did all the animals. So Oliver Butterworth's book, The Enormous Egg, Lois did all the dinosaurs. So I became very good friends with Lois when I lived in Connecticut, and she made me the executrix of her estate, and I now float around in her little canoe, and I also draw at Louis' drawing table. So that's one of those universe things just coming around, it's just amazing. Because when I was in first grade, I would carry big stacks of these books just to look at the drawings and read Beverly Cleary's wonderful writing. And I remember where I was standing when I saw the work of Edith Holden, the Edwardian naturalist who painted these incredible things that she gathered out in the field. And I was in an attic of a used bookstore in Martha's Vineyard in about 1983. And I saw this book and I thought, oh, I've met my sister. This woman is doing what I do. This is so cool. Because always from an early age, I always wrote in the margins of my drawings. I wanted to annotate them. I wanted to record what I'd been seeing. I wanted the scientific data with the painting. And there was Edith Holden doing that too. So Louis Fuertes was the guy that when I was age 8, I saw his paintings in a book called Birds of Eastern and Central North America. I had an extra tooth in my mouth, and my parents took me to the oral surgeon to have it removed. And as a consolation prize, they took me into a used bookstore and bought me this book that had Louis Darling's paintings in it. And anytime I'm tempted to feel sorry for myself that I don't have exactly the materials that I need to do my work, like when Winsor Newton stopped making 20 by 30 inch full sheet cold press watercolor paper, I curled up on the floor for half a day. I mean, I was just, what am I going to paint on? Well, let me tell you a story about Louis Darling. He was headed to Africa. He was the expedition ornithologist and painter. And his job was to paint the birds that they collected, that they shot for the museum. And his job was to paint them as soon as he could after they were shot, so he got all the soft part colors and all the eye colors and the feet colors right. So Louis was there, and he had this big steamer trunk full of all his favorite paper, his favorite brushes, his favorite paints. And what happened? The ship rolled, and that steamer trunk went overboard with all of his materials and sank like a stone. And he went into Addis Ababa when they landed in what is now Ethiopia, and he went to a bookstore and he bought some pastel paper that was tone-colored for pastels. And he bought a child's watercolor set with little hard pancakes of watercolor. We all know what those are like, right? And he bought some toy brushes, and he did those. So I don't feel sorry for myself anymore at all. I was very lucky to have a mentor in Bob Clem, who did the illustrations for the Shorebirds of North America with text by Peter Matheson. That is a beautiful sort of a coffee table book with fabulous text and fabulous paintings. And that was the last book that Bob Clem ever illustrated for publication because he was not happy with the reproduction. So he stopped painting for reproduction. He painted only easel paintings that he then sold in galleries. That was his choice. I love working for reproduction. I love illustrating. I have no problem, some problem, but I've gotten over sort of saying, oh, it went red on the press, dang it, these things happen, but more people are seeing your stuff, so illustration is good. So the foundation, Bob told me, of my work should be life sketching, just drawing birds as they run around and move. And he said, the more outlandish the pose and the stranger the angle, the more you're going to learn about how the bird is constructed. It's exactly analogous to figure drawing in the studio, where when the model lies down like that, facing away from you, you go, wow, look at those triangles and rhombuses. Who knew that humans had those? So you learn a lot more about how the birds are made. And it's very challenging, but with a spotting scope, which you set up and you can just look through as you sketch, it's much easier. So these are wild turkeys. And when you've been sketching for 3 or 4 hours and you're kind of in the zone, you get these nice, really reductionist sort of paintings or sketches that just have no more information than they need to convey turkey, and that's what I aim for. Here's some ospreys that were sketched from life under the nests, and really you sort of tune into the emotions of the creature, and you get these almost a caricature-like effect sometimes as you go, because you're basically drawing their emotions. So the other exercise that I did was to draw dead birds. It sounds very strange, but you can learn a great deal about live birds from dead birds. So I have always had federal salvage and collection permits, and my freezer is usually stuffed with dead birds. And I give them now to the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, which I think is going to build a wing with my name on it because I've given so many specimens. All road kills, all window kills. Birds die all the time, and you can learn a lot from them. So, you know, I didn't know until I picked up a grebe that had hit a power line that they weigh exactly a pound. It was like picking up an India rubber ball. It was a heavy little thing. But these are diving birds, and so they are able to express all the air in their air sacs and their lungs and simply sink below the surface slowly like a submarine. It's the most amazing thing to watch. 1 minute you see it, 1 minute you don't. And they also have legs that only work to the side. They can't walk like this, because their legs are made just like oars on a boat. So I did my time as a bird illustrator. I illustrated several field guides, and the last one I did, I remember the plate that killed me. It was the juvenile hawks in flight. And the reason it killed me was because every feather on a spread-wing juvenile hawk in flight has one little dit or dot on it, right? And if you don't get the number of dits and dots right, or you paint too many of them, it could turn into another species in your painting. So it was very, very annoying. And I decided that that was the last field guide plate I would ever do. So what I yearned to do was tell stories. Like in the ivory-billed woodpecker painting, I wanted to tell the story of the best thing a birdwatcher could possibly see in their entire life. And that would be an active nest of ivory-billed woodpeckers with the female flying by behind and the male feeding 2 very healthy young ones. So now the illustration jobs I do are more reduced. I don't do a lot of illustration other than for my own books, but I do covers of breeding bird atlases, and I just did Ohio's. This is the Parula warbler is on the cover, and that is a job I can't say no to, and I'm about to start work on West Virginia's breeding bird atlas cover. I did illustrate a book this past spring, and that was a book on ospreys. I just did 5 paintings for it, but this is one that I wanted to show the peril that an osprey feels at sea when it's migrating. And I wanted to somehow convey that it was on open water and not near land, so I thought maybe putting a really big tanker ship in there was the way to do that, right? And also have a stormy sky and just sort of this feeling that this thing is just out there beating its way across this ocean alone, you know. That was what I wanted. So I had an epiphany in 1993 when a book I had illustrated got a John Burroughs Medal. And the Burroughs Medal goes to the author of the book, not the artist. So I was kind of like, I had done a lot of revision, a lot of rewriting on the text of this book. When I got it, I wasn't happy with it. There were a lot of errors. I kind of rewrote it and handed it in with my illustrations. Went on to get a Burroughs Medal, and I said, why am I not writing my own books? I can do this. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do this. So I'm a slow learner. So that was 93. And the thing that I started with was bluebirds, because I knew bluebirds so well. I've been running bluebird trails, which are lines of boxes of, for nest boxes for bluebirds. I've been running them since 1982. So that's a very long time to have checked Bluebird boxes. These are my kids when they were little, and I used to take them out to check the boxes with me. And every day in the summer, we would see a miracle in our hands. I remember when my daughter was only 3, I handed her a whole nest of hatching bluebirds that I'd just taken out of a box, and she looked down and she looked up at me and she said, "I feel like I've been blessed." And I thought, if that hits a 3-year-old like that, how about everybody else? So I thought to myself, what if I went and I got a baby and I painted it? And then I put it back in its nest, and then I came back the next day and I painted it again. And that isn't exactly the next day, but you know what I'm talking about. I basically went, got a baby, brought it in the studio, did a painting of it, took it back to its mom and dad. Mom and dad didn't care. They were cool with it. It was all good. So I was painting and painting, and I realized that I was doing something completely unique that, as I found out later, nobody has ever done this. So once I had done bluebirds, I started working on the Carolina wrens that were nesting in a hanging basket by my front door, and that was my first summer of painting baby birds, and I was hooked. They are beautiful in their own way, and I love painting them when they're just a little blob of pink protoplasm, and I love painting them when they're getting their feathers and when they're getting nervous like that. This baby here. Sometimes when you go in a nest box, you get a surprise. That's a tufted titmouse who's very mad at me. Oh, leave it be. How cool is that? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to surprise you. I usually, in the hour-long version of this talk, I have a really nice lead up to that rather shocking video. If you reach into a nest box and something bites you, it's a titmouse or a chickadee. They are full of beans. And my friend Al Batt says that if titmice and chickadees were the size of red-tailed hawks, we'd all be afraid to go outside. So that's a very ticked-off titmouse. I will show you, I'm not even sure what's coming next. Okay, here's me painting the titmouse. This is how it looks when I'm working. I've got this little creature in my hand. Oh, and it's like warm. I'm keeping it warm. I'm feeding it age-appropriate food, species-appropriate food as I work. I have the federal and state permits to do this. I know the parents won't desert. It's all good. But don't try it at home, okay? So I'm painting away, and these little things grow so fast. And to me, it's one of the great miracles is how fast these babies change. And the pin feathers start to come in on the wings, and you get this creature that looks nothing like what you started with. And then they start to grow these little butch crests. And I often think that as all those hundreds of pin feathers break through their tissue-thin skin, how miserable they must be. You know how when you're getting teeth, how much it hurts and you got molars coming in? Imagine if you had 200 pin feathers coming through your skin at once. Ow, ow. So there they are, titmice in the nest, and they all fledged and they did great. This is day 19, same house as the mother titmouse was in. Watch what happens when I say wow. Wow. You guys are really cute. Okay, gonna leave you be. About day 19. Ooh, didn't think they'd still be here. Hallelujah. So happy to see them. Obviously, I have to stop painting these birds when they reach about day 12 or 13 because they reach what I call the age of sentience, the age of awareness. They suddenly have developed a mental category for bird and not bird. And they look at me, these babies who were perfectly fine with me holding them and feeding them, and they say, "Oh my God, you're not a bird." And they're afraid. So I have to stop painting them when they get to that age. I can't handle them anymore. So I've developed a technique that I'll talk about a little later of how I paint birds that are older than day 12. So this book, this 3.5-pound monster. And if I look muscular, it's because I have been lifting 30-pound boxes of this book for almost 2 years. This book is the result of 13 years of work where I was able to paint maybe only 1 or possibly 2 baby bird species per season. whatever came my way. So basically, I was guided by serendipity, which is just sort of whatever happens, I go with. And by the time I reached the 17th species, I realized that I had worked my way through all the birds I could reasonably expect to get in my nest boxes. And I was disappointed, but I also knew that I needed to eat and pay the mortgage and put shoes on my kids. So I said, okay, this book is done. So I sent it in, which means I sent in all the artwork and I sent in all the computer digital files of my writing. And from the time I send it in until it is published, there's a whole year. When it gets, this book is being shipped around and getting printed in Taiwan, and it's on a slow boat back to the US, et cetera, et cetera. It takes a whole year. So in the introduction I wrote, 13 years later, I've almost exhausted the possibilities of birds I can study without endangering them, painting every cavity nesting bird that could inhabit my nest boxes save white-breasted nuthatch. Oh, how I would love to have white-breasted nuthatches to paint. But each species I have been able to depict seems like an extravagant gift. I dream of a second volume depicting whatever birds fate sends my way. Top of the list, white-breasted nuthatch. The possibilities are delightful, if not endless. So, the maiden launch of this book was in April 2016. I went to a festival in West Virginia where I debuted the book, and I gave a talk. And I signed it, and I was selling it for the first time, and it was so exciting. And I got in my car and drove back the 4 hours from Fayetteville, West Virginia to my house, and I stopped the car in the front yard, and before unloading it, before even running into the bathroom, I got out of the car and I ran a beeline down to a box on the clothesline pole down in my backyard. And I can't tell you why I did this, but I had a strong feeling I needed to be there. And that little box had fallen open. And in the box was a white bird with her little bill pointed to the sky, exposed to the world, the weather, and it was a white-breasted nuthatch. And she was on 3 eggs in a box on my clothesline pole, and if the hair isn't standing up on your arms right now, it should, because it was Mother's Day Sunday. So that's what I mean about the universe telling you you should be doing this. So of course, I dropped everything and I made the most incredible baffle for this box so that no raccoon or snake or chipmunk or mouse could climb up and eat my precious nuthatches. All of my boxes are protected this way. So I made this awesome baffle. Here's me opening the box. It's like Christmas Day, about 8 days later. I didn't even know the things were in there. Then I get home, and this is what I find. What? Oh my freaking God. Houston, we have nuthatches. That was one of the best moments of my life. Well, there's Mama on a freshly hatched baby nuthatch, and I was so determined that nothing happened to these babies that I practically watched the box around the clock. And look at this beautiful little nest, and you know what she's lined it with? Is hollow fill from my dog's toys that he ripped up and, in the yard. So she liked hollow fill. And this is a baby nuthatch in the hand. Isn't that incredible? I mean, it's not cute in a conventional sense like the way a baby bunny is, but to me, it's like really something. So this is what it looks like. I did a little painting of the nest of the babies and the eggs, and it was just an incredible experience. This is my favorite video in the whole thing. Don't miss it.
Look at
now watch this. My son is making this video.
Oh, he's gonna poop. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
I know. It's pretty amazing, huh? Is that not so awesome? Now, because some of us were fidgeting and we might not have seen it. I'm going to show that again because it is my favorite video. Hang on. Okay. So what you're going to see here is what happens as this is what goes on in my studio. If the baby won't beg from me, I will make a noise like the mother nuthatch does. So listen for that. Worked. Scrambled egg.
Look at it go down his throat. Oh, he's gonna poop. Keep shooting. Keep shooting.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing, huh?
Now, did you
I feel so
notice
much
how
better
that
now.
the poop was contained in a membrane?
Thanks,
It's
ma'am.
completely clean. It's like, this is the most amazing thing. It's a bird diaper. So basically, they have this little mucus membrane, and all the poop is contained in it, and the mother bird can pick it up, or the father bird, with her bill and fly it a long way away from the nest and drop it without ever soiling her bill or the nest. And that's called a fecal sac. And when the baby bird stops producing this membrane that makes a fecal sac, it's almost ready to fledge, which means to fly out of the nest. So at the point at which the nest is starting to get dirty, the babies leave it. So the nuthatch grew up very nicely. There were 2 babies that hatched, and I painted them, and I quickly ran out of paper because they were in the nest for 21 days, which is a very, very long time. The female always sat in front, the male always behind, and I have noticed that as I work with these baby birds, the young birds keep exactly the same position in the nest throughout their infancy. They, just like a kitten, if you've ever had a litter of kittens, each kitten will pick a teat on the mother and say, this is mine, I drink at this one, everybody else away. So the babies keep their position in the nest. This was one of the sweetest rewards of my work ever. These babies had been fledged for almost 3 weeks. They were gone, they were flying around, being fed by their parents. And I have a tomato stake in my flower garden right outside my studio window, and this fresh, beautiful baby nuthatch came and perched on the tomato stake and looked in at the drawing table where he had been drawn for so many weeks, and looked at me, and I looked back at him, and we had a moment. So I was trying to get out of the bird rehab business. I was trying not to do a lot more of this because birds have a way of taking over your life. They come into your life and you change everything you do because you have to feed this thing every 30 to 45 minutes. Now that's a lot of feedings. And so you really can't do much of anything unless you carry that baby along with you. So if you have to go to the bank or you have to drive 30 minutes into town, you have to put the baby in something like a purse and carry it with you so you can feed it, and you have to bring the live mealworms, and before long you have a little petting zoo rolling along, and it's rather distracting. So it's hard. It's something that not everybody wants to do. So I was fine, and what I did was I got a scientific collecting permit instead of my wildlife rehab permit. The difference between the 2 types of permits is, with the scientific collecting permit, I don't have to have my home telephone number posted and sent to every veterinarian, soil conservation service, and wildlife officer in the state. I don't have to have my home telephone number on the ODNR website as somebody, who you gonna call? Julie, right? So, you know, for my entire life, I had had my home phone number floating out there, and it just got to the point where I could barely do anything but answer the phone. So I had gone undercover. I had a scientific collecting permit. The phone calls stopped. I was able to paint. I was able to write. I was able to grow a vegetable garden. It was awesome. And then Facebook comes along. And I have 4,000 friends on Facebook. And those 4,000 friends have another 18 million friends. And each one of them says, oh, I know who you need to send that picture to. I know who's going to help you with that. Julie will help you with that. So I'm actually in worse condition than I was before. So somebody from Marietta, Ohio, which is a mere half hour from me, sends me this picture of this totally dehydrated, clearly dying baby blue jay. And I'm like, oh, no, because I've always wanted to raise a blue jay, and I never have. So I think, okay. I start to tell her how to feed it and what to do to save its life, and I see that it's sick, and I go, just bring it to me. So from about the first 5 minutes, I was completely in love, and I set about saving Jemima. My daughter came home for spring or summer break, and she was exhausted. She had been through final exams, and she walked in like a ghost. And the first thing I did was put that little bird in her hand, and I said, this'll help. And she said, you always have a little friend for me. So they became very fast friends over the 3 weeks that she was home, and they were inseparable, in fact. A lot of wildlife rehabbers will say, feed them and leave them alone. Protect the wildness in your charges. The problem with blue jays, and actually with all baby birds, is that they need to know they're loved. They need to feel that they have someone who cares for them. You can't just stuff food in them and walk away if you expect them to thrive. So my reasoning went, this is a highly social being. She would be in her family. She would then join a flock of other blue jays. I'm going to give her some social stimulation, and we'll let her sort out who she is. So this is what the kids devised to give her exercise. That's my son Liam's foot.
All right. This is blue jay exercise. One. Two. Three. 5. 6.
This is hard.
You can do it. Come on, Jemima. Come on, Jemima. Come on. Do 7. Come on, Jemima. Me.
You did. What a strong baby.
Wait.
What a strong baby. Where are you gonna go now?
So that's Jungle Gem, they called it. And the bird, I mean, these birds are as smart as chimpanzees, okay? I think of blue jays and crows and ravens as flying monkeys. That's how smart they are. So she was a real kick to raise. This is how to inflate a blue jay. My daughter made this video. She is a little master of the 30-second video. I'm going to play that one again. There is an innate response in birds. Innate means it's born in them, hardwired, that when you blow hot air on the back of their necks, they go into what's called a sunbathing response. So this is what's going on here. So if you ever see a bird under your feet or in the backyard in the hot sun suddenly spread out, fall over on its side and spread its wing and raise its hair, its head feathers, that's what's going on. So what was interesting about Jemima was I tried to give her time out in the tent. I had a beautiful flight tent set up in the garage. And I would put all her favorite foods out there, but she would not eat until I came out to say, Jemima, are you eating your food? And then she'd go, oh, yeah, I'll eat. And she'd fly down to the bowl and she'd eat. And I thought, oh, there's something going on here. She was missing the social stimulus of having us around. So she was raised in the house. She got in the flight tent when she got so rambunctious and so annoying that I couldn't stand her in the house anymore. And then I'd take her out to the flight tent. But really, she was raised in the house because she needed our social stimulus.
Whoop! I clicked another one. Beautiful. That is beautiful.
Now watch as the song builds a crescendo what she does.
Where I'm standing now, that I'm right on the edge of giving in to you. Baby, it's a long way down.
Come on, Jemima.
Can you let me down? If I leave my heart.
Is that not one of the great videos of all time? Now, Phoebe said she loved country music best of all, but I think that's because that's what Phoebe liked. But I will say that she loves Ed Sheeran, and Barcelona was her favorite song. Barcelona. I have many minute videos of her singing Barcelona, which I won't subject you to. But we'll watch some more. Now then, this is how I knew it was time to let Jemima go. She came onto the lunch table and stole watermelon.
And a little thief came.
What a bad bird. Flies into the living room.
Look, Liam.
My son's working at his drawing table.
Bye-bye, couch. Is she gonna eat that whole thing? She needs to go somewhere where she can process it.
She's looking for a place to stash
so
watermelon,
Jennifer.
probably in the couch. Yay!
She's gonna do it on your drawing.
So So there was this moment on June 7th when a wild rose-breasted grosbeak showed up at the feeders and came over to the window and looked at Jemima like, "What are you doing in there?" And she was like, "I would like to come out with you." And for 10 minutes, those birds communicated through the glass, she flying back and forth across my drawing table, he flying back and forth in the shrubs just outside, and it was the most magical thing. She couldn't be released yet because she wasn't taking 100% of her food from a dish. As soon as she was doing that, she could go. And in fact, she was released on June 11th. And so the question was, a lot of people were asking me, how's she going to know about hawks and snakes and all those dangerous things and cars and dogs and all this? And I said, I don't have to teach her any of that. And I'll prove that with this little video. I was inside working at the drawing table and I heard Jemima give a call, like this, that I'd never heard. It had a special intensity to it. And I walked out to see what she'd found. What do you see, Jemima? Could it be this insanely beautiful black rat snake on the hanging basket, cruising over to the bone size? What do you see, girl? You know damn well what's dangerous, don't you? Yes, you called. It's a snake. You told me it was here. She found it.
And it wasn't about food, was it? No, sir. Boy, if your instincts aren't working. God, you beautiful thing. So what are you after, sweetie? Were you thinking that the wrens were still in the bucket? Because they aren't.
He was checking the hanging basket for
Wren's
Carolina
fudge,
wren
man.
nests.
And I'm happy about that.
Yeah, he's not going to hurt me.
This tells me I've got to re-up my Phoebe baffle in the back. Oh, you beautiful.
I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. Isn't that neat?
Swallows are talking about you, too.
So Jemima knew that that was a dangerous thing.
Jemima.
She knew to stay out of its way.
You are fully J.
Watch this.
Yes, you are. Look at that pose, man. You are not fooling around. Thunder rumbling. Mama, there's a black snake on the
Isn't that
porch.
beautiful? So she, like I said, she taught me everything. She already knew how to do all this stuff. Her instincts were so complete and so fully realized that it was just a matter of my releasing her and continuing to feed her before she became a full-fledged member of the Blue Jay community. I spent the entire summer studying this bird. I spent the entire fall studying this bird, photographing it. My son, my daughter, it was a family thing. It was absolutely beautiful. On July 9th, when she was 66 days old, she came in the studio window. And that was the last time she came in the house, and it was just the most beautiful moment. She flew around to all her favorite places and sang along to Ed Sheeran, and then went right back out the window. Follow your passion, it will come right in your studio window and say hello. She's got a mate now, whose name is Maybelline. Phoebe named Maybelline before we realized Maybelline was a male, because, as you can see, there's a lot of black eyeliner. So he's wearing guyliner, and she is continuing to keep company with Maybelline, and they come in together to the feeder. There's a slight wrinkle with Jemima. Because she was so sick when I took her in, her feathers are weak, and they have broken off. So she is flying with probably less than half the number of flight feathers that she should have. So I realize very keenly that every day that Jemima's with me is a gift. And I hope that she will make it through until she molts naturally in August, but that's a very long time from now. So it's kind of it's a cliffhanger. This picture is special if you know anything about birds. Birds do not like to have shadows fall across them, neither do butterflies. So if you're out in nature and there's a butterfly on a flower and you walk between it and the sun, and your shadow falls on it, that butterfly will fly away because that reads as a predator. So imagine my delight when my shadow fell across Jemima as she drank and she just stayed put. That's the ultimate expression of trust in a bird. She still comes to the studio feeder. I stationed my son Liam at the studio window this morning. I said, please watch for her. Here's the camera. Take pictures if she shows up. She's been away as long as 8 days without a sign, and then she'll turn up again. She hasn't been in. This is day 4 now, and I've been waiting for her. All the other Jays have come in, not Jemima. I have learned not to despair. And that's a very hard lesson for a very nervous mother. This was taken 4 days ago. She's looking pretty chipper. She eats chicken and rice, pecans, peanuts, corn, sugar snap peas, all kinds of good stuff. And this is a secret feeder that I have in my studio window where I have it protected by plexiglass from the rain, and I have little crocks in there for her to come into. There's an artist named Mac Love who works around Akron and Cleveland. And someone sent me this picture of a mural that he and some high school students painted this summer. It says, "Imagine you wake up with a second chance." And that leads right into Joseph Campbell's famous saying, "We must be willing to get rid of the life we've planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us." When Jemima was put into my hands in May, that was the life that was waiting for me, and I had to be willing to ditch what I was doing and go with what had just been given me. So, I would like to end with a song, and then we'll have our conversation. And I decided to do the song when I heard you guys were going to be here, because I had a feeling some of you might like turtles. Do you like turtles? Yeah. Kind of had a feeling. All right. This is a feat of technological daring do. I will attempt to do it right. You gotta play. Come on. He was standing on the road with his head held high. All he could see was tar and sky. I saw him on the road, on the way to Memphis. I was going too fast to miss him there. Had to straddle him and stay. A prayer laid rubber on the road, about burned my brakes up. And I looked in the rear view. The next car missed him, the semi too. I stopped on the road, on the way to Memphis. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Little soldier knows where he's going. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Little soldier knows where he's going. Well, I saw 30 more that the cars had crushed, and I asked myself, what's a big fat rush? We barrel down the road like we own it. He's just trying to live his life, out looking for a brown-eyed wife. He'll cross 4 lanes to try and find her. Well, soon there won't be any more, 'cause they're all lined up at heaven's door. Little soldiers down on the road to Memphis. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Little soldier knows where he's going. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Little soldier knows where he's going. In Southeast Ohio, we have the most beautiful turtles of all. They're the most brightly colored. That one's name is Daisy, and I raised her from a baby and released her. Rainy days in May and June, I hope you will sing this tune wherever your work or play has you going. 'Cause we can't change us and we can't change them. They're always on the losing end, dashing their hopes on the highways. And it breaks my heart to see them die, trying to make it to the other side. I only saved 2 on my way to Memphis. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Little soldier knows where he's going. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry him across. Pick him up, carry soldier knows where he's going. Little soldier knows where he's going. Little soldier bound for glory. Thanks so much. Thank you very much. All right, I guess we got to the conversation part.
Oh, and you have picked us up into the universe. Oh, in a very special way.
Yeah, well,
Julie, that was wonderful.
that was longer than a half hour.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
But we have time. We
Yeah,
have time.
Good,
Ah,
good. All right.
yes.
We picked up a turtle once down in North Carolina, and we're just going to drive a little way to put it where there was a creek, and by the time we got there, it had pooped all over our car.
They'll do that.
Big time.
Yeah, they'll do that. It's not nice stuff either. Yeah, you got to watch it because they'll sometimes release their bladders when you pick them up too.
I was at a nursing home this morning visiting a woman who lives there, and on her pictures, she had a picture of a bird. And next to the picture, it said, "Birds don't worry. Why should you?" I think you've already responded to that, but if you'd like to.
Yeah, well, it's always inspiring to see an animal with a disability, like a pet who's gone blind or deaf, as my dog did, and to see them, after a brief period of adjustment and freaking out, just carry on. And it's true, the birds don't worry. Interestingly, though, Jemima knows she's compromised. And a perfect example of that was about 3 days ago when they were all sitting in a spruce. She has a group of 6 jays that she hangs out with. And someone sounded the hawk alarm, and 5 jays came rocketing out of that tree and flew to deeper woods. 1 jay stayed. It was Jemima. Jemima had to conquer her instinct to leave with the others, which was extremely strong, and stay put because she knew she couldn't cross the distance as fast as they could. So it's that kind of intelligence, it's that kind of override of instinct that's going to keep this bird alive for as long as she has been alive. Looks like we've got some pressing questions. Let's keep them quick.
I was driving back from my school to my home, and I found a turtle.
And what did you do?
My dad picked it up from the road, and we got to bring it home.
And then what?
We let it swim in our pool.
Ooh. Okay. A lot of people's first instinct is to bring the turtle home, which is exactly the wrong thing to do. Because a turtle will live its entire life, which could be 150 years long, in the same 1 to 5 acre plot of land. So when you take a turtle away from the place that it knows, it may wander for years looking for something familiar. The other natural instinct for people to do when they get a turtle is to put it in water. Box turtles are terrestrial creatures and they will drown in water, so you gotta not do that. So, especially something like a swimming pool, you don't want to do that. So when you find a turtle, the best thing to do is pick him up, carry him across the way he was facing, and leave him there. If the habitat is terrible, like a supermarket parking lot, you can assume that he was dropped there by someone and you need to take it to the Ohio Wildlife Center, where they will get in touch with somebody like me and say, hey, do you have 80 acres we can put a turtle on? So, yeah.
It can be a dilemma, though, if your dog brings you the box turtle.
Yes, that's tough.
And you want to put the turtle back where it was.
Right.
But then the dog knows where it is.
Right, you don't know where it is, yeah. Chet brought home 1 box turtle to me, and I found him chewing it in the front yard. And it turned out to be Nerat, a turtle that I had healed 2 years earlier, wired the shell, epoxied it, everything. So I knew Nerat was home. I mean, this is where he lived. And I just had to teach Chet right at that moment that he was never to chew on a turtle again. So he didn't, which was not a hard thing to do because he was a good boy. Yeah. Yes?
I wondered if you were exposed to Beatrix Potter when you were growing up. You mentioned those others.
Yeah, Beatrix Potter, you know, I could go on for hours about Beatrix Potter. She's magic. And, you know, there was somebody who was told she shouldn't be doing what she's doing. and that she wasn't any good at it. And, you know, because she was female, and she just said, well, I'm just going to write stories about rabbits then, and you watch. You know? So, yeah, I loved...
Tabitha Watchett? What was the name of
What?
one of her characters? Is it Tabitha?
Tabitha?
To watch it?
That was the pussycat, right?
Oh, a pussycat.
Yeah.
Ah.
Jemima Puddle Duck was the goose with the bonnet was my favorite.
Well, let's take a moment, just a moment, to talk about your amazing drawings.
Okay.
Your art. Where did you study art?
I started drawing when I was very, very young. I had a sister who was 2 years older than me who was much better than I was. Ever have a sibling like that where they're so much better than you are? So my father would praise my sister's drawings, and he would be watching me out of the corner of his eye. My sister had a gift for doing caricatures and sketches, and I could only draw what was real. I drew what was in front of me. So we had different brain organization, I'm convinced. But I decided that I would do what I was good at, and that was drawing realistic things, and she could do the cartoons and the caricatures. So I would say that she was my first instructor. She had a natural knack, and I didn't, and I just worked to try to get my dad's approval.
And when you were in college, what did you study?
When I was in college, I took a year of drawing under Will Ryman, who is one of the most versatile artists. He works in everything from plexiglass to stone to charcoal. I mean, he's incredible. And I'm still in touch with him. And I took a year of drawing from him as a freshman, and it laid the foundation for everything. It was the first studio drawing I'd ever done. I'd never been in front of a model, anything like that. So that was the totality of my formal instruction, was that. And then after that, when I started painting watercolors, I got Northlight books out of the library, just piles of them by Northlight, and I would bring them home. How does blender wash? You know, it's like.
Now, speaking of books, you have your books here
I do.
to sell.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a price list there, and I
Okay.
have
And we can
limited edition
browse
prints, and yeah, I'd love to
prints.
sign books for people. If you brought books from home, I'm totally happy to sign them. So yeah,
Good.
hey, you've been waiting so long. What's your question?
One time,
Talk into the microphone so the people over there can hear you.
one time, my dog ate a bird, but I got it from my dog before it swallowed it, and I put it in its birdhouse. Then every time I come to it, it opens its mouth, and I have food in my hand, so I give it some food.
Well, that's nice. That's a good save. Did the bird make it? Did it grow up?
Yeah, it made it.
It made it. Hot dog. That's wonderful. Did your dog learn anything from the lesson? Dogs.
But I have 3 dogs, but 2 of them do not eat birds. Just my Millie, the little dog, she eats everything.
That Millie. Yeah. Okay. We all set? All right. Thank you. We're nearing the time. Thanks very much.
Julie, it was wonderful. Wonderful. And thank you for being here. We're happy to have you. Thank you, everyone. Wonderful that you came to be part of the Conversations and Coffee. And if you are newcomers, know that we do this every Thursday at noon to 1. Okay? We welcome you back.